Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are here, episode 12 of 13 Reasons Why. I can't believe I'm almost done with this series. I've loved every second of it, and I actually just learned a little bit ago that there's going to be a season 2 of 13 Reasons Why, which I have no idea how, but that's not the point. Let's dive into our episode 12 review of 13 Reasons Why. Episode 12 really took me for a wild ride. I mean, I know that we're getting close to the end of this season for this show, but man, there's so much going on, and we're not exactly tuned in to the characters in the show, and I mean that in a way of saying, we're not sure what they're thinking, even in the slightest, at least for some of them, including Clay. Tony, I say, would probably be another, but let's talk about all of the side characters that had a pretty decent role in this episode. So all the characters that have had a tape that Clay has listened to so far are pretty much all in a frenzy at this point. And I mean, I don't blame them because they all get subpoenas that they have to testify at Hannah's court case. And that means that if they lie under oath, it's clearly perjury, which is a felony, and they could get in real trouble at that point. Not to mention all the stuff that they've done is on these tapes that, they think that they're being called forward because of the tapes. They don't know that Mrs. Baker actually found the list, and that's why they're handing out the subpoenas, on the piece of paper, and she sees all the circles that Hannah wrote. It's not the tapes that they have, it's just the list, and that's why they're calling all these kids. They kind of misconstrued of, Clay has clearly turned us in, given up the tapes, and I understand, part of their rationale at this point where they're just trying to save their own asses, but at the same time, I feel like they are terrible human beings because they are trying to defend things that they know are true, about themselves or what they did to Hannah or whatever it may be. I'm going to call them the terrible people of the round table, and not just because I love Arthur Pendragon, but to be honest, these are they're acting like terrible kids. They all realize now, they have to realize that one, Hannah wasn't lying. At least from for the majority of those tapes, Hannah's not lying. She is hitting everyone nail on a head. And I think that they're both partially embarrassed, but also just confused as to where to go. And I'm going to give you guys some advice. Just come clean. The longer you guys try and drag this out, the more trouble you are going to get in, and the worse you're going to feel about it. So how Courtney and Marcus are still defending Bryce and other people and their own actions or maybe their own feelings. It's amazing to me that these kids, after all this time, after all the things that have happened, after 2 kids have died, not just 1, but 2 kids have died, and obviously what they learned on the tapes, how they're still defending anyone in this entire series, it's beyond me. I do want to hit at the fact one more time that I do believe that there are characters that do feel remorse. I think Alex, I think Ryan Shaver. I think that there are kids, Zach would maybe be one too, where they actually feel bad about what they did, even they know that Hannah was telling the truth. But I think someone to really keep an eye on at this point is Alex. He's been acting very strangely. His dad in general acts very strange. He ends up trying to, I think he gets him out of going to the court case, and Alex just thanks him. But at least as far as we can tell in the series, Alex wants to be punished. As we saw earlier in this season, he got the shit beat out of him by a kid twice his size and didn't even think twice about it. And that's because he feels like he deserves to be punished for what he did. A lot of the other kids, okay, I won't even say a lot, but at least half of the other kids feel no remorse to what they did, or they're not willing to admit that Hannah was being truthful. I feel like he is somehow a key in this. I feel like Alex's standpoint since maybe episode 5 has just been really weird. He's been acting very strangely, and I am definitely worried about him. Before we get into the Clay stuff, which I know you all want to hear, let's touch on the Hannah Baker stuff with her parents, right? She gets this money because her parents are strapped for cash. They can't make rent or their mortgage or whatever it is, and pretty much they're going to get evicted. They're going to lose their home. Hannah says, instead, how about I just go to college a year later? You take it out of my college savings fund, or, she gives them ideas and they end up giving her a, wad of cash to go deliver to their landlord or bank. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. And so she goes, but she makes the classic mistake, which I, by the way, made at least one time in high school. I lost one cell phone to the top of my car roof. But yeah, she leaves the money and a Coke can on top of the car, and I get it. She was talking to Clay, and she's like, I'll come get my uniform or whatever it was. And yeah, I get it. She was in the moment, oh yeah, maybe he's still going to like me or something. And we end up finding out that he's not very happy with her still. But she ends up leaving that up there. She loses the money. And this just is the beginning of the worst day of her life. One easy little thing left. Sherry throughout this whole episode is avoiding the main group of kids. she seems to be taking action. So we end up seeing at the end of this episode, we get this amazing shot, and I'll talk about all of the amazing shots we get at the end. Sherry's shot, Zach playing with his sister, Justin leaving his house, Alex cleaning up his room or whatever. That end scene was absolutely beautiful, but Sherry throughout this episode is, having remorse. She tries to talk to Mr. Porter, who once again, clearly is involved in this. She tries to talk to Mr. Porter, I've done something wrong, and what do I do? And she ends up doing, at least from what I can tell, the right thing at the end of this episode. She calls the police or lets them know, I was the one that damaged that stop sign. And we get that beautiful shot of her at the end where she's standing or sitting in front of the stop sign that she broke, and just feeling the remorse. And I can see it on her face. She's acting way better in these later episodes than she was in the earlier ones, in my opinion. But I love the way that she's sitting there just looking at the stop sign, filled with dread. And once again, she at least feels bad about what she did. I just think that the other kids should kind of take note on the way she's acting, because she's trying to actively make other people's lives better, which I think is Hannah's message. All right, you guys have been waiting long enough. Let's talk about Clay. So first off, he gets MVP. He gets MVP of the season, of the series, whatever. Clay, you are the MVP. I know you had some struggles earlier this season, but I just want to let you know, man, you're in our hearts, okay? We're cheering for you, bud. We are rooting for you 100%. You are the home team. We are ready for you to smack it out of the park. And I mean, at least as far as I can tell. So this is what I infer. Clay ends up obviously finding out about Bryce, which, by the way, I'm not going to mention what he did to Hannah because my last video got demonetized because of it. But Bryce does the same thing to Hannah that he did to Jessica, which obviously you know about. It's just one. Let's get this off the bat. Screw Bryce. That dude is a maniac. He's a psychopath. I cannot believe that any of these kids would defend him after all the things they've heard on the tapes about this kid. It's just mind blowing to me. Nobody in real life, at least, and that's maybe my one quip with this is. No one in real life would defend someone to this degree if they were 100% sure that they did it. And I know that there's some doubt there, but everything else Hannah has said is true and just this one thing isn't. I don't know. Whatever. Point is, Clay ends up hearing this tape, hears what Bryce did to Hannah, pretty much is the end of, Hannah's regular life. She even says that I died on that day. I was nothing after that. And she even talks about how lonely she was right before that, after she obviously loses her parents' money and tries to go talk to Clay, and he's still very hurt about Jeff. And yeah, I mean, she's dead inside after that, especially after Bryce. And I can't believe that any of those kids are still willing to defend him. He's a creep. He's a total terrible human being. I would say so many more things, but I'm trying to keep this PG-ish. So yeah, I hate him, and Clay plays this perfectly. I think I know what he's going after here. I'm not sure we get 100% confirmation in this episode, but I'm pretty sure I know what he's going after. There was a click, right, in his backpack when he went to go and buy drugs from Bryce. He clicks that on. I'm pretty sure that's the recorder. That's why he asked Tony for that recorder, so that way he could get an open mic sound. And he's just sitting there questioning Bryce, you did this to her. You know what you did, admit it. You say that she wanted it, but that's not true, and you need to say the words for me right here. And it's amazing to me that Clay had the wherewithal to actually come up with this plan in a very short period of time. And on top of that, he ends up taking a beating from Bryce, a freaking massive beating. I was honestly a little bit scared for Clay at this point. After we saw what he did to Hannah, what he might have done to Justin had he actually interrupted him and Jessica at the time. I don't know. The dude is crazy. I did not know what was going to happen. I mean, he beat Clay bloody, and just the pain on Clay's face when he finally gets the answer that he wants, and he's writhing there on the floor and stuff. It's just Bryce is a terrible human being. He's got to be caught at the end of this, and I think that's what Clay ended up doing. I'm guessing he recorded Bryce admitting to the crime, which I'm still not going to mention because YouTube's being a pain in my butt, but yeah, it's pretty obvious, I think, what he was doing. And I just want to mention at the end of this, too, I do not believe that is Clay that is in the ambulance at the end of this episode. I thought that was a really weird cliffhanger. And I know that he's not home, the mom and dad freaked out or whatever. And by the way, I love them in this episode too. The mom finally going after Clay, very directly, did you do something to her? We need to know about it. I can, warm you up for this deposition or whatever. I love his parents. They're very concerned. They're very caring, and they just want to, try and help their son. But obviously Clay had other plans in mind. And I just love the fact that you see like characters like Clay and even Tony this episode, with him opening up to his boyfriend and just finally telling him things. And I like the way that these characters are taking initiative now. Finally, people are not standing still. They're willing to do things, and I love the way Clay does this. I'm not sure, and I'm not a lawyer, but I am curious, like, can you actually use that in a court of law? Because I thought you couldn't record people without their knowledge, but maybe I'm trying to look into plot holes here. Don't listen to me at all. But yeah, I just love the character progression we finally get from Clay. He has to take a stand against Bryce. He's an evil human being, and he deserves to pay for his crimes. On a final note, Hannah in that end scene when the song starts playing and she's, she's starting that list. She's starting the list that her mom found on that piece of paper with all the circles, with all the names. Man, that scene, it was really well done to me. I love the lighting in that scene where she's just sitting at the lamp again, kind of like how we started off the season, if you remember, where she's like first broadcasting to Clay and she's like, hey, I love the way that they set all of that up. The transitions in this episode, like when Clay is over at Bryce's house and he sees the party that Hannah's going to, and like he's looking out the window, and it turns from when he's at Bryce's to the party. Transitions, once again, in this show are phenomenal. They are borderline like amazing for me. I love the way that they're keeping it. Clay is looking out at these words that Hannah is telling him. They've done a phenomenal job. And that end scene with the song playing and, Jessica showering and Alex and Hannah and everyone being in pain, just beautiful. Beautifully done. And Netflix, you are really hitting a home run on this one. Well, guys, that is pretty much it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think so far. Do you love this show? Are you happy that we've already been renewed for season 2, which I'm very confused about? I need to go watch the final episode of this season. I need to know what happens because I thought this was going to be a one-time thing. I thought it was going to be one season. So yeah, I need to go find out exactly what happens. But yeah, I was very confused by the season 2. I had no idea that they were talking about a renewal. So that's very interesting to me. Doesn't really give me any hint, I don't think, of the ending to the show. But I mean, we kind of already know, right? A little bit. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Have you guys loved this series as much as I do? What are your theories? What happens in episode 13? Once again, I do not think that is Clay in the ambulance. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Give us a like if you like this video. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. That helps us out the most. And until next time, guys, we'll see you soon.